26F. I lied about who my baby daddy is. I went to college in California, but I grew up in the Midwest. He discovered that I had deceived in the worst way conceivable. I dated Jeff, a 26-year-old, during our final 2 years of college after meeting him there. After high school, I stayed in California to finish my master's degree, while Jeff started working. After I completed my master's, we intended to get married because we were happy together. Jeff struggled with his father's departure and had second thoughts about getting married and starting a family once I graduated from college. Heartbroken doesn't even begin to describe how I felt when he ended our relationship. Because I was doing well at my job in California, I decided to stay put and hoped Jeff would change his mind so we could reconcile. We didn't. About 5 months following our breakup, he began dating Grace, 25F. As soon as I found out it was ended, I began preparing to return to my own state. He and Grace split up at the beginning of this year as a result. While they were apart, Jeff and I shared a couple nights of sleep together. There was no cheating because it was a public breakup. About a week after our final sex, he told me that he and Grace were getting back together. He stated he couldn't be friends with me because he still felt something for me and had to let it go in order to be fair to Grace. His final advice to me was to not call him unless I was truly dying and only wanted to say farewell. 3 weeks later, I departed California. After returning home for 2 weeks, I discovered I was pregnant. Jeff is the owner of it. I'm not that girl who gets pregnant in an attempt to win back a boyfriend. I created new social media profiles without putting my name on them after deleting all of my old ones. I only added close pals to my Cali network who I knew had no connection to Jeff and would keep my new accounts a secret from him. When I checked out early in my pregnancy, I made a mistake. Upon perusing Jeff and Grace's profiles, I saw that they had both referred to one another as the love of my life. A picture of the two of them together even bore the caption, "I'm going to marry that girl." This made me feel even more sad, so I decided to block them both and carry on with my life. I'm currently 6.5 months along. Since returning home, I've been busy creating a nursery for my child in my own home in my home state. With only a little assistance from my family, I am certain that I can nurture and care for this tiny boy on my own. I already love him. My closest Californian pals were getting hitched. Before my life revolves around the baby, I made the decision to fly out to see my friends and wish the happy couple all the best. I will be preoccupied with the baby at that time, therefore I won't be able to attend the wedding. Even though it had only been roughly 6 months since I had last seen them, it was wonderful to see all of my friends yesterday. I arrived in the city on Thursday. I made it clear to everyone that I didn't want to be photographed below the chest. The pictures they posted of me online merely give the impression that I've gained weight around my face. Nothing would indicate that I am expecting. The buddy I'm staying with recommended that we go to the store and acquire a scrapbook for a friend who is getting married because there are just a few days till my journey home. As we were leaving the store, I ran into Tanya, Jeff's cousin, who is roughly 22 years old. "Come in, F." Over the years, I spoke with her a few times at Jeff's family gatherings, but we were never close. I didn't want to visit her since she talked about other people too much for me to like her. She started by announcing to everyone in the store that I was expecting, as if my appearance would have given them away. Then she starts interrogating me, asking Jeff if he is aware of this. I declined and said he didn't have to know. I didn't want to start a major argument, so I lied and claimed it was his. Tanya then questions how I got here so quickly and tells me that my belly is a sign that I'm far along. Jeff and I broke up a long time ago, I told her. She retorted that at the beginning of the year, everyone knew we were still seeing each other. I had no idea that was something that everybody knew. Jeff, I assumed, would not have mentioned that. Nevertheless, I told her a fake story, saying I had a new boyfriend and was 5 months pregnant. She gave me an odd praise that seemed to acknowledge that. After paying for her items, my friend and I departed immediately. That, I hoped, was the last of it. Tanya went ahead and reported that she saw me pregnant a few hours later, because she enjoys talking about other people. I've received texts from a few pals informing me that Jeff is attempting to contact me through a lot of emails. He can't contact me directly because they haven't given him my new phone number or social media connection. I have 2 more days before I go home, and I'm going insane. Some friends of mine believe that since he already knows that I'm pregnant, I should just tell him the truth. I'm still going to say that I can act like it's someone else's and not his for the time being. Honestly, all I want to do is ignore him and head back home. However, I'm not sure if that's the best option, and because nobody can agree on what to do, I'm looking online for advice from strangers. It is August 2023, as of just a moment ago. Hi to all of you. The majority of individuals who saw my article concurred that I should inform Jeff that the kid is his. It was evident from the outset that we actually got together. Even though it wasn't really exciting or engaging, here's what happened in case anyone is interested. At the place where I was staying with a buddy, his phone rang. He insisted on meeting immediately away, but all I wanted to do was converse on the phone. I wanted to get it over with immediately, and he seemed to share my desire to do the same, even though it would have been preferable to wait until the next day. Since I couldn't conceive of any other reason why he would want to talk to me at that precise moment, I was genuinely expecting him to declare he didn't want anything to do with the kid. Recall that the time of day was approximately 10 o'clock. To wait for him, my friend and I went to his parents' place. Even though we definitely shouldn't have met, his parents always treated me like family, so I guess that's why I felt comfortable being there. Jeff's mother was there to welcome us when we arrived. I could sense she wanted to touch my stomach as she hugged me, but she refrained. Not that she asked. Glad I've always thought well of her. We engaged in awkward small conversation as she showed me to the living room. The area was still, disorganized, with drinking cups and streamers scattered around. They had obviously just had a party. On the couch, Jeff and Grace were embracing and holding hands. I was surprised because initially I had no feelings for him. I chose to stand when he offered me a seat. In any case, I wouldn't be staying there for very long. Jeff then inquired as to why I hadn't told him. I told him that maybe I might mislead Tanya, but he knows that I would never have gotten pregnant so quickly after meeting a new person. Sincerely, I informed him that the last time we spoke, he advised me not to call unless I was truly about to die. I'm not dying, he told me that he was trying to be respectful to Grace, and that obviously this would have been an exception. Grace chimed in to tell me that I ruined her proposal. I found out later, third-hand info, but knowing Tanya, I believe it. The party at his parents' house was for him to propose to Grace in front of all their friends and families. Tanya waited until after the proposal, and when people were giving speeches, she told Jeff she was so glad he got away from me and wasn't going to be stuck raising my baby. Then all hell broke loose at the party, apparently. I had no idea that happened at the time, or I honestly would not have went to see him at all. But hearing that he proposed was when it hurt. He broke up with me cause he was scared of marriage and kids, but he dated her not even half as long as we did, and she got a ring. I put on a brave face, or at least I think I did, and acted like it didn't bother me, but it absolutely did. His mom told Grace that it's not my fault and now wasn't the time for that. Then Jeff told me that obviously I can't move now. I told him that I already did and I was only in California for the weekend. He countered, saying that I have to move back. I told him no, I'm not doing that. He said, well, I can't just leave. At that point I got frustrated and told him that I left months ago. My job is in my home state. I bought a house. All my doctor's appointments have been there. I established residency there a long time ago. California isn't my home anymore and hasn't been for half a year now. So then he got frustrated and got up to approach me asking if he's just supposed to send a paycheck once a month, and saying this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I don't really know what he meant by that second part cause he just found out I was pregnant a few hours before. But I assumed he was taking about his life plans. I forced myself to calm down and try to be empathetic. I told him that if he was worried about this screwing up his plans for the future, that he had nothing to worry about. I don't want or need anything from him. I've planned everything out from finances to childcare when I return to work to even setting up my baby's college fund. It's all taken care of already. He didn't really say anything. I didn't know if he was thinking or just relieved that I had it all handled. I told him he can still get married to Grace and have his own family someday. I promised I wouldn't bother or blame him for anything. My baby will be loved and cared for. Jeff got teary-eyed and told me that I know how he feels about this. He was referring to when he broke up with me and said that he didn't want to be a dad because he didn't think he'd be a good one. He also has abandonment issues from his bio dad walking out on him, his siblings, and his mom when he was 6. I told Jeff that he's not him, his bio dad, that he's better than him and always will be. His mom started crying at this point, I guess from seeing how his dad's abandonment still affects him to this day. I promised Jeff that I wouldn't let my baby think that Jeff was a deadbeat. I'd be honest that we just weren't meant to be together and we live thousands of miles apart. He told me that he can't just not be in his kid's life, and that I don't understand what it could do to them. He asked if we could please just figure something out together. I asked him what did he realistically expect would be a solution. Because I'm not moving back to California and I highly doubt he and Grace wanted to pack their bags and move that far away from their own families and friends. I said I'm not going to be sending my kid on a plane every few months either because that's too much. Jeff didn't say anything to that, so I told him. Maybe that could be an option when he's older and has more independence, but right now it's not happening. Jeff's eyes lit up and he asked, "It's a boy?" I'd been careful not to reveal the gender up until then, but I messed up there. I nodded and he nervously asked if he could feel the baby. Before I could even respond, Grace let out this loud wail and stormed off to the kitchen. His mom excused herself as well as she was still crying. So she left and her husband followed her. That left me and my friend awkwardly standing alone in the living room. All we hear is his mom sniffling in the hallway and Grace sobbing while talking to Jeff in the kitchen. It was so incredibly uncomfortable. And I know many will hate me for this, but I just felt overwhelmed by the whole thing. Maybe it makes me pathetic, but having to stand in the room where a party was just held to celebrate Jeff proposing to another woman hurt so damn bad. So I left. I told my friend, let's get the hell out of here. And we quietly walked out. We ended up staying in a hotel, and I was able to get an earlier flight home on Sunday. Now I'm back home and putting my focus back on the nursery. I told my friends that I had talked to Jeff and I apologized if he still tried to reach me through them. I advised them to block him if it's too much. I know this isn't the end of things. I'm planning on reaching out to him again eventually. Even if he broke my heart, I still care about him, and I won't deny him a relationship with his kid, if that's what he really wants. I have no idea how it's going to work, and I'm only allowed to update once, so I apologize that I won't be able to tell anyone who cares how it all turns out. Thank you for the advice on my last post. Even though everyone was downvoting me and the post itself, it was nice to get opinions without bias. Update 13th of August 2023. I'm a little surprised to be writing this. I thought my update post was one and done, but I guess it got reposted on another sub yesterday and gained traction there, so a bunch of people have requested another update. I wasn't aware that people could make posts on their own profile, either, so I feel dumb for thinking that I could only update once. But here we are. I greatly appreciate the newer comments supporting me. The few comments I got from the relationship advice sub were all in support of Jeff and downvoting everything I commented. I felt like I was crowned the queen of hell over their TVH. I haven't replied to any of the new comments because while most of you just read about the incident. Yesterday, for me it was 2 weeks ago, my hormones are all over the place due to my pregnancy, but thankfully I'm past the headspace I was in that day, and when I first returned home, I do appreciate all the well wishes for me and my baby though. Before I give an update, I wanted to clear a few things up. First, I've seen a lot of comments saying that Jeff proposed to Grace within a few months after they started dating. That's not true. Aside from the 1-month breakup where Jeff and I conceived the baby, they were together roughly a year and a half before the engagement, assuming they had no more breakups after. Like their full history, nor do I care too. Second, I feel like people were being a bit harsh on Jeff. I can honestly say he is not an abusive or controlling person. The man never so much as raised his voice at me in the 4 years we dated. He was a bit overbearing by demanding that I had to stay in California because that's where he is, but he just found out about the baby and was panicking that I'd disappear and he wouldn't be able to contact me, which, to be fair, that's exactly what I did, so I get it. I had a million thoughts, some wildly ridiculous when I think about it now, running through my own head when I found out too. Third, he wasn't juggling Grace and I at the same time like people think. She broke up with him. They both thought for good at the time. He and I started having sex again, but it wasn't. Like we were in a sequel of the lovey-dovey honeymoon phase. It was a weird and confusing time. We weren't talking about getting back together. I already had a start date for my new job back home and my move was scheduled. He didn't know any of that. I was still in love with him, of course. And I hoped he'd tell me he wanted to get back together and I would have stayed, but he didn't. Finding out he was getting back with Grace hurt, but I can't say I felt used for sex. I don't think either of us knew what the hell we were doing by sleeping together again in the first place. Jeff is a simple man, overall. I promise he's not some supervillain taking advantage of women and playing with their emotions. I'm not making excuses for him. I wish it were that easy to say that he's a dirtbag and you should give me all your sympathy. In reality, I know who Jeff is as a person. Anyone who read my posts knows him as just a collection of bad and/or questionable choices he made. If you summarize anyone up to just the bad shit they've done, of course they'd come off as an unlikable person. Jeff's not evil or manipulative. He's just got some stuff he probably should have worked 3 years ago. And admittedly, I never thought his issues were that prevalent until we broke up. Plus, I'm positive that Grace knew we slept together while they were broken up. There's no way that was a shock to her. He would have told her himself. And even if he somehow hadn't, if Tanya knew, then everyone else knew shortly after, guaranteed. Lastly, I appreciate everyone concerned about any custody issues that may arise from this. I was also amused by the people who were hyping themselves up, thinking that I was delusional, and actually going to be forced to put my baby on a plane by court order. I'm not sure why so many people on Reddit are used to dysfunctional relationships where judges and a huge custody battle need to be involved, but that's not us. Jeff and I were together and very much in love for years. It might be hard to picture that when you've only read about the shitty end of our relationship, but everything before the breakup was an ideal relationship, which is exactly why it hurt me so much when he ended it. Things are weird now, but we don't hate each other. Our default option, even in a complicated situation like this, is not we're taking this to court. That would be the last resort. I'm sure we'll work it out between ourselves long before it ever gets there. So on to the actual update. I planned on contacting Jeff after a couple weeks. I wanted to take time to gather my own thoughts and figure out what I wanted to say. Instead, I got phone calls from his number about a week after I returned home. He left a voicemail asking me to call him so we could talk. I was honestly furious because there's no way he should have been able to find my number unless somebody told him. It might not seem like it's a big deal, but to me I saw it as there being somebody who betrayed my trust in them. I texted him asking how he got my number. He said it wasn't important and that he wanted to talk. I said it is important to me, but he still didn't want to tell me. I told him we can talk when he tells me who he got my number from. So finally he told me who it was and sent a screenshot of the conversation when I asked for proof. It was the second least likely.